technology. So there's another company called UV Pure whose systems were selected to work on the Dreamliner, and it's actually in a whole integrated system where the pilot, through a heads-up display, can actually see how the water system's working on the plane, and that's something we're very proud of. You know, looking at a water hub, I'm sorry, you know, I really saw a couple of core areas of what makes a water hub happen here. And in my opinion, you know, it's government urgency and leadership. That's a critical aspect. You know, there's testing, validation, and training assets that have to be on the ground, that have to be present. And then there's the utility or end user engagement along with commercialization efforts. And you know, these are three simplistic prongs of what I believe is the essence of creating a water hub. But then within each of those arms, you have a bunch of triggers and levers that you can pull. And once again, you know, from a government point of view, that could be putting out strategy, legislation, incentives, or funding. You know, from the testing, it's access to these testing validation sites, it's standardization of rules and regulations, and it's piloting opportunities. And you know, the water hub in Ontario, it's a living, breathing entity that, as WaterTap and the Ontario government and other stakeholders, you constantly have to be looking at this live environment, figuring out which levers you want to pull, where you want to put more investment in, where you need to pull out investment, because if you lose the balance, it's going to be very hard to develop a successful water hub. And you know, the question was asked as well as, you know, why is India favorable for training, technology, collaboration, and for the global water market? There's some great discussion yesterday, and I wrote down a couple of these points and put this slide together last night. You know, some of what I heard yesterday is India, you know, is potentially the world's largest market in the world for water, wastewater needs that's coming up. You know, I think Ontario is very well suited for that. Ontario has significant expertise in exporting solutions to major global water markets, primarily our neighbor to the south, which being the United States. You know, capital is required, and it's a good time for India to seek capital right now. I absolutely agree with that. And you know, I think that having someone like a partner like Ontario on board with all of our validation testing assets can provide an extra level of insurance or assurance, you know, to the people who are looking at putting money into India, that the technologies work as they were described, you know, that the solutions are sustainable, you know, that there's training coming in, so it's not just infrastructure you're building, but you're building the know-how on how to operate these plants for a long term. And economic benefits. You know, I think that Ontario has realized a lot of economic benefits from developing our water hub, and I'm sure that can be replicated in India and other places around the world. But we do have a trade agreement in place. You know, we've got 22,000 jobs that are developed in the water sector in Ontario, and that number is growing every day. You know, there's training exchange opportunities, but you know, there's a lot that can be done, and I think very positively once you start building that water ecosystem and you start adopting new solutions, new technologies that are mixed with local needs, you know, that can be a very prosperous environment for India. So in conclusion, you know, quickly, Ontario's got a lot of expertise and a lot of assets. You know, having a unifying event, something to rally around, I believe is critical. And I think this conference is a great step in going in that direction because it helps to set clear priorities and a common sense that people can follow behind and understand. You know, key investments need to be made, and the water hub needs to be actively managed. You got to maintain that balance, because if it's not firing on all the right cylinders, you're going to find that it's not a healthy community. You know, and finally, I think that, you know, we've discussed in this conference some very complicated and complex ideas and theories about what the solutions can be to sustainable river basin management. And you know, I believe that a lot of these solutions and directions need to be local, but there's a tremendous opportunity to learn from what other regions around the world have done for water sustainability, take that knowledge, change it, morph it to apply to local settings, and you'll be able to avoid mistakes and implement your solutions much faster. So on that note, I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I'll pass over to Brent.
Thanks, Mike. I'm obviously not Brent. Brent's very kindly accepted to not present because a lot of what he wanted to has already been covered. Brent, was there any quick 2-second remarks that you wanted to? Perhaps you can talk a little bit about the Canada-India Training Consortium that you're chairing and leading.
Yes. As Mike pointed out, we're launching a new Canada-India Water Training Consortium, and we would like to invite any of you to come to our event tomorrow that is going to focus extensively on this new initiative. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm the incoming chair of the Water Tap organization, so I'm very pleased with the presentation that Mike gave on our new initiative.
Thank you, Brent. I'll just take literally 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to tell you what I was hoping to give out, presentation I was hoping to give out last night. So we've heard a lot of complex ecosystem-related challenges, not just technological, socioeconomic, financial, policy, governance, et cetera, et cetera. How we want to transform all of this, so what Mike and Brent and Ivy talked about in terms of building ecosystems and innovation clusters, and this is our biggest program that we're going to launch in India. I'll just skip that slide. So essentially, we're developing a water innovation cluster in India that will capture all of these complex areas and issues that God talked about. The cluster will be physical cluster. It will have multiple locations, as you can see. The southern campus has already been identified at Vittal Innovation City. It's on 50 kilometers north of Bangalore Airport, and it will address complex water issues in the Krishna, Kaveri, and Godavari basins. And the northern campus, we are hoping to put somewhere on the Ganga basin, and in fact initiate a dialogue with the IITs to cover the Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, and the Narmada basins. So what will the park actually do? These 5 areas. So starting with core research and innovation, it will be the first multidisciplinary park that will bring all the academics together, not just from India, but from around the world. It will have a very strong water resource mapping and modeling center. Socioeconomic model. We heard in the previous session, water pricing is such a key issue. So water inequality and how do you address those challenges? Industry solutions. What Mike mentioned, what they do in Canada. We're trying to see and get guidance from what the Southern Ontario Water Consortium is doing in some of the training aspects, in technology transfer, in intellectual property management, incubation, finance, and finally, to bring it all together is what we have the Big Impacts program, which is how do you roll out some of these complex innovations, and when I say innovation, I use the broad term in terms of financial, economic, technological innovations into the real market. So these are some of the areas, they're not all of them, but some of the areas that the Innovation Park will address. So I'll just leave it at that. If you have any questions, you can look up ETI Dynamics' website, and happy to answer any more questions that you have. I'll probably wrap up this particular session. Munish, did you have any final word on?
Okay, I just wanted to actually do something which I had not done earlier, which was to thank the IITs and Sanmit for this conference and this opportunity for the European Business and Technology Center to participate and be a partner. And we've actually been successful at the conference already. We've got 2 agreements signed with a French company, Ciel et Terre, and a Swedish company, AquaQ, and to take this forward in terms of the Water Innovation Park that's been mentioned. That's something that is of immense interest to European Union as well as us, and we would be looking to work with you quite closely on that. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking the panelists for their contribution and remarks. Can I now invite Dr. Tare to we'll wrap up, so if you don't mind. Dr. Tare, we'll go into the final closing session because we have an absolute hard stop at 6 o'clock whilst the panelists are coming off the stage. So from an international perspective, this was from a fantastic start. Thank you for your contributions. We would be hopefully growing the conference over the next few months. As I said yesterday morning at the beginning, this is not the end. This is actually the beginning of the journey. Every month between now and when the next conference comes in, we would be doing a number of activities, so please do follow up. We'll be actually setting up a new website focused purely on the India Water Impact Summit, so you can follow up all the dialogues and discussions over there. Just a couple of housekeeping for those of you who are joining the Canada-India the workshop on 21st century water resources tomorrow. It will be at EMPI Business School. There's some brochures, flyers outside. People who are going for the field visits, very, very crucial to make sure that you connect with the organizers outside at the registration desk. Otherwise, you will not know where to go and where to be picked up from. So make sure that you after this particular session is over, you aggregate outside. With that, I think, Dr. Tare, I hand it over to you now to steer us through the final 20 minutes and sum up what all has been happening over the last 2 days. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Sanmit. We had 2 days of discussion. Both the days were very long days, and I sincerely thank you for cooperating and sitting through all the sessions. I would take much less time than what is given to me. I'm supposed to kind of summarize what happened in the conference, but I do not intend to do that. To be very frank, I think we will send this across. We had a number of sessions. The way the sessions were planned, in fact, I was too selfish, to be very frank, when I planned these sessions, because I wanted to get kind of answers to some of the questions, some of the issues in which we were not very clear about how to go forward in terms of preparing the Ganga River Basin Management Plan. The other aspect was we on certain issues we thought we should make some recommendations. We made recommendations and we wanted to check how people react on that. On both fronts, I was more than satisfied. By and large, whatever that we have been thinking about, particularly in terms of the concept of zero liquid discharge, the PPP models. Of course, I would not say there are complete unanimity on these issues, but as we proposed the concept, the doubts came, the issues came, the concerns came, and as we explain what we mean by zero liquid discharge, in what context, how were we taking, I think there was more and more agreement on that. So that way I was satisfied. And also in terms of the PPP models, when we gave the clarifications, and in fact we have been doing this discussion for the last 1.5 years or so, and I was very happy to see that now at least, in fact, even it has come to the implementation level. Particularly, I was very happy when Delhi Jal Board CEO, was very enthusiastic, and she said she is really they are planning for it, and some of the